The Ricoh GR has been a cult classic for 30 years. The latest one, the GR4, brings modern tech and modern pricing to that series. I actually love it. I pick it up more than any other camera. I carry it with me like everywhere all the time. It is an everyday carry, but this has also infuriated me. It has like major flaws that you should know about before you consider buying it. I'm going to compare it against the $75 Camp Snap and the $5,100 Sony RX1R Mark III, as well as the Fuji X100VI. And I'll tell you all about it, but first I want to thank our sponsor, Squarespace. You need some kind of web presence for you, like stop relying on social media. Get your own domain, like I have northrupphotography.com. Here's how you do it. You start at squarespace.com/Tony. There's a wizard that will walk you through choosing a template, setting up your website. They make it incredibly easy to make a gorgeous website. You even have an AI assistant that can help you generate and lay things out. It's so easy that you don't have to be a nerd to have your own website. You can try it out completely free. Start at squarespace.com/Tony. Set up your store. Take appointments from clients. Make your restaurant, your dental office, your photography portfolio, your video reel. After your free trial, when you love it, the coupon code Tony will get you 10% off. First, I'm going to cover some specs, but you should not care about this. I just know some people are going to be mad if I don't talk about it. It has a 25 megapixel APS-C sized sensor. The lens in 35 millimeter terms is about 28 millimeters f4. So none of that super impressive, right? Wait till you hear the video spec. It maxes out at full HD, 1080, 60 frames per second. That's right, it does not have 4K video. It doesn't have a flip screen, just a completely fixed screen. There's no electronic viewfinder. And it's $1,500. You could buy yourself a proper Canon R8 for less than that. So far it's seeming absolutely insane, right? I'll tell you what else. The flash here isn't built in. It's an extra $116 if you want a flash. That was in the $800 GR3. So the specs suck. Why am I even reviewing it? It's because the design is so incredible. This camera is so small that it literally slips right in my pocket and I can forget about it. It's so light that I can carry it on a wrist strap like this and it doesn't bother me. That's not the case with this amazing camera. This RX1R Mark III has all the specs: 60 megapixel sensor, a beautiful fast lens, but it's just, that's not gonna fit in your pocket. And if I try to carry it with a wrist strap, it just gets too heavy. It's banging around on my wrist all day. It's also not that discreet because, well, it is big and beautiful, and at $5,100, like, I'm not gonna bring it out someplace where I might get robbed, because none of these cameras have any kind of anti-theft. So the Ricoh fulfills like a niche of being easy to carry, discreet, fun, and, well, not your iPhone. It does have some interesting tech that very expensive RX1R doesn't have. Like, it has sensor stabilization that I found so useful. I love to drag the shutter, do long exposures that show movement, especially in my street photography. I was consistently able to shoot shots at longer than 2 seconds. And that is made even easier by the fact that, well, it has an adjustable aperture, so I can shut the aperture down. It also has a 2-stop ND filter built in that kicks in automatically. So long shutter speeds, even in brighter conditions, are really achievable. And that gives you a lot of creative control. That's something you cannot do with your iPhone. It also has internal storage. 53 gigabytes, I think, which is plenty, especially if you're shooting JPEG, which is fine to do on this camera. The fancy Sony RX1R at $5,100 has no internal storage. You have to put in an SD card. This does support a micro SD card, so if you want that, you can have it, but it won't use it for backups. It won't even automatically overflow from the internal memory to the SD card. So I pretty much am just using the internal memory and offloading it with a USB-C cable to my computer, or the Wi-Fi app, which works okay. In full frame terms, the lens here is equivalent to 28 millimeters f4, whereas this camera is actually full frame and it's a 35 millimeter f2. So the Sony here, more telephoto, this wider angle. I prefer the wider angle because you can always crop down, right? 35 millimeters can be a little tight, but I do miss the speed. Like, this being an f2 lens gives me significantly more background blur than I can get out of this. In fact, this gives me almost no background blur. Like, basically everything is in focus, but that can be a good thing because the autofocus sucks. This camera does detect faces, but not always. Sometimes it detects faces and will snap on into focus, and especially in good lighting conditions. Sometimes glasses or different face angles, it just won't see the face, so you can't even really rely on face autofocus. And in low light conditions, the autofocus absolutely sucks. Now, it does have this mode where it will light up a green light to basically light the whole scene so it can autofocus on stuff, but that green light is so distracting. I can't tell you how uncomfortable it is if you're at like a nice event and you go to autofocus and then there's a super bright green light comes on and sort of blinds everybody you're taking a picture of. It's like the opposite of discrete, but it will allow it to autofocus. The problem is if you turn that off, it will autofocus in low light conditions and do okay, except sometimes it'll just absolutely refuse to focus. And then you're trying to take a picture of your friend and you're like, focus, focus. Okay, wait, hold that pose, hold the drink up, just pretend you're drinking. You can do it like 5-10 times and it won't autofocus until you turn that stupid green light back on. Now their solution to that is downright bizarre. It's called snap focus. It's like a historic thing, going back to the era of manual focus when street photographers didn't have time to manually focus on every subject. So instead, they would visually estimate the distance to the subject. Like they'd say, okay, I'm about 15 feet from that subject, so I will dial my lens into about 15 feet, and I won't nail it, but I'll take the picture and it'll probably be close enough that it's within the depth of field and it will pass. So you can kind of do that digitally by using snap focus to dial in the distance to your subject. That requires you to completely rethink everything, because no modern camera works like this, right? We're always used to just like, it's going to find the face and focus on it. But that process is also kind of fun. So if that sounds good to you, then great. I will say it's another big gripe. It only shows the distance in the metric system. It only shows meters. So when I'm trying to estimate distance as an American, I think, okay, that's he's about 10 feet away. Now I gotta like divide by 3. So look, this has a 200-page manual and an incredibly complex menu system, a bafflingly complex menu system. It is absurd that they have all those different ridiculous settings, but they don't give me the opportunity to switch to feet instead of meters. Why, Ricoh? Why would you do that? And that's always been the case. It's not like a bug. They just don't care. They're like, learn the metric system, you stupid American. The lens does have a macro mode, but it doesn't go into that macro mode automatically. You have to manually push up on the directional pad to select the macro mode, and then it doesn't switch out of that. So if you forget later, your camera just won't focus. I've had that happen where I either pressed it intentionally or accidentally and it was stuck in macro mode and it wasn't autofocusing. So like, again, you have to like be very conscious of how this camera is autofocusing. And for me, creatively, I really don't want to get distracted with like, why is my camera autofocusing or not? I really kind of want that part to be the easy part. They do have an app so you can transfer files to your phone and it works okay. Like the connection was a little bit frustrating. It works sometimes and didn't work at other times. The bandwidth is okay. It's better than some at about 60 megabits per second. Keep in mind your phone, my phone, will transfer files at 600 megabits a second. So it's like 1/10 the speed. But then like some Sony cameras, I found they work at about 10 megabits per second. So it's not the slowest and the file sizes are reasonably small, but still, if you have 15 pictures, I found it took more than a minute to transfer the images. Not an impossible amount of time, but not the worst either. Surprisingly, I found the location tagging in the app actually seemed to work okay, at least for a bit. At some point, it stops connecting and you no longer get your GPS tagged images. But if you make a point of like syncing it up at the beginning of the night, it seems like throughout the rest of the day, it'll probably stay connected and you'll actually get GPS tags. Still, camera manufacturers need to start building GPS into cameras. It's 2025. Let's talk about competing compact fixed lens cameras, starting from the cheapest to the most expensive. The cheapest here, something I really like, is the $75 Camp Snap camera. I love these little cameras. I just keep it in my pocket. It's not great image quality. It's even worse technically than the Ricoh here, but it's fun to use. It has a flash built in. And the pictures, they have a character to them, right? I highly recommend this. If you're thinking about whether you'd like a camera like this, pick up the Camp Snap. It doesn't have a rear screen, just the number of photos that you've taken at the back. And I actually think that's a huge positive, because then when you take a picture of somebody, they can't be like, oh, let me see the picture. Oh, if I don't look good, I look fat in that. So you don't have to worry about that. You can just take and stay in the moment. Highly recommend the Camp Snap for its price point. Above this, we have the Fujifilm X100VI, and it is just like technically a far superior camera. It has more megapixels, the autofocus is better, it's a more stylish camera with its retro design. It lacks some of the character of the Ricoh. Like first, it's significantly bigger. Maybe you could fit the Fuji in your pocket, but I really couldn't easily fit it in there, whereas the Ricoh solidly pocketable. And that means I carry it more, and that means I'm using it more than I ever did my Fuji. But the biggest difference is just the vibe. Like the Fuji is like retro 50s, 60s kind of cool vibe. Like it says I'm an artist. And this is like retro 90s. It kind of says like I'm cooler than that 60s guy, because like I was a kid in the 90s. That's kind of what it says. And you pick the vibe that you want and go for the camera based on that, rather than any discussion of specs or autofocus, because honestly neither one of them have great image quality or great autofocus. Something that does have great image quality and great autofocus is this $5,100 Sony RX1R Mark III. It's designed to be super small. It also has a fixed screen, but it has a full frame sensor, a lens that provides much more background blur and many more megapixels. But you know, it's more than 3 times the price, and it doesn't fit in your pocket. In fact, it's kind of a pain to carry around. It's not that much smaller than an interchangeable lens camera, but still, I also bought this camera for my own use, and I actually do love it. And I do often care about image quality. Much more often can I just hold it out and trust that it's going to find the subject's face and snap into focus. So it just sort of enables like one-handed street photography. Even like while I'm on a bike going past things, I can just shoot. But it has lots of weaknesses that even this GR doesn't have. Like it has no sensor stabilization, no stabilization period. So I can't do those long exposures that I can on this. I'm kind of limited, like 1/30th of a second. Even 1/60th of a second is sometimes shaky on the 60 megapixel beast, whereas the Ricoh, I'm comfortably going down to 2 seconds at a time. And that gives me more creative control, albeit with less technical image quality. But if you're going on Instagram, none of that really matters anyway, right? The Sony also lacks internal storage, so you have to add a memory card. But maybe the biggest competitor is this, the iPhone that's already in your pocket. I mean, besides being cheaper than the Ricoh at like $1,300, it's also like you have to have one anyway. For the image quality and side-by-side tests, the iPhone pictures were a little bit better than the Ricoh. Not a lot better, but they were a little bit better. And this lens is about 24 millimeters as opposed to 28 millimeters. But even when I cropped this to 28 millimeters, the pictures were still better. That pains me. Like, this is not going to really take better pictures than the iPhone that you already have in your pocket. And while this is small, this is already in my pocket. So like there's no penalty to using it. And this is discreet, but nobody cares about your phone. Like you look weirder if you aren't holding your phone in your hand. And so if you're looking for something small that takes better pictures than your phone, the Ricoh ain't it. But it doesn't exist. Like your phone is by far the best thing for its size because it has the power of computational photography and all that. This is what you pick up if you want something with like better vibes than your phone. Something that's just like literally not a phone. Something you can use to take pictures without getting distracted with text messages and notifications. And that's why I love the Ricoh. So in summary, should you get the Ricoh? I'm like, if you're in love with this, if you love the 90s vibe, if you want to create those kinds of pictures and you aren't stunned by paying $1,500 for what is technically a very mediocre camera, then get it. I love it. I've loved using it. And when I kind of bought it to test it, like I'm going to keep shooting with it because it's fun. It's unique. And at some point, I'm not buying one camera for everything. At some point, I'm collecting little cameras for different niche purposes. If that sounds like you, maybe it's also the right camera for you, because I do think it's the right camera for me. Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to check out my sponsor, Squarespace. You need a website that's not controlled by social media, something you own, your own custom domain instead of gmail.com. Someplace you can send people that reflects your design aesthetics, your vibe, your fonts, your colors, your layout. You can choose all of that. You can have AI help you with it. Do as much or as little as you want with that, because ultimately Squarespace is yours. You can try it out completely free. Don't take my word for it. Just go, have fun, make your work, your business, your personal project, make it look great at squarespace.com/Tony. Free trial. No credit card required. It's not like that. Once you love it, the coupon code Tony will get you 10% off. Thanks for sponsoring me, Squarespace. Bye.